Imagine this for a moment. It's 3 in the morning. You're wide awake, staring up at the ceiling while your thoughts refuse to slow down. Your mind keeps running through every possible financial disaster that could happen tomorrow. What if your car suddenly breaks down? What if your laptop stops working? What if your job disappears overnight? Maybe your pet needs an emergency visit to the vet. Does that sound familiar? Now imagine something different. What if there was a specific amount of money that could quiet most of those late-night worries? An amount that doesn't make you rich overnight, but completely changes how you move through life. Most people assume financial milestones are just random numbers invented by wealthy people to make everyone else feel behind. But the truth is, there's real psychology and even a bit of mathematics behind why certain savings levels dramatically change how we think and behave. And the first, truly powerful milestone isn't $1 million. It isn't even $100,000. It's $10,000. If you've ever wondered what it actually feels like to reach certain financial milestones, and more importantly, how those milestones start changing your decisions and mindset, then you'll find this conversation valuable. But before we talk about why $10,000 matters so much, let's look at what life often feels like without it. You know that moment in the grocery store when you pause in front of the shelf, comparing prices and calculating whether the name brand product fits your budget, or if you should settle for the cheaper option that doesn't taste nearly as good? Or when friends suggest going out for dinner, and you quickly invent an excuse because spending $25 on a meal would completely wreck your budget for the week. For millions of people, this is everyday life. Every purchase becomes a calculation. Every unexpected bill feels like a looming disaster. Instead of building toward the future, you're constantly playing defense, trying to survive until the next paycheck arrives. But something interesting happens when someone builds their first $10,000 in savings. And surprisingly, it's not about buying expensive things. In fact, most people who reach this milestone don't suddenly change their spending habits at all. The real shift happens inside your mind. The first thing that changes is how you think about risk. When you have no savings, almost every decision feels dangerous. Switching jobs feels risky. Moving to another city feels risky. Even planning a vacation can feel stressful because one wrong move could leave you financially exposed. But when you have $10,000 sitting in your account, those same decisions suddenly feel manageable. You're probably not going to quit your job tomorrow and run away to join the circus, but you might finally feel confident enough to ask for that raise you've been thinking about. You might decide to take a course or certification that could improve your income. Having a safety net doesn't make you reckless. It simply gives you permission to think about more than just surviving the next month. There's also something fascinating happening in your brain when you see a 5-figure balance for the first time. Researchers have discovered that financial security can actually lower cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. In other words, having savings doesn't just improve your finances, it literally changes how your body responds to everyday problems. Think about the last time your car's check engine light came on. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that little light might as well be a flashing warning of financial disaster. Your mind immediately jumps to questions like, how expensive will this be? Will I need to use a credit card? Do I have to borrow money from someone? But when you have $10,000 saved, the situation feels completely different. You're still annoyed, but you're not panicking. And that shift from panic to mild inconvenience has a huge impact on your quality of life. When you're not constantly stressed about money, everything improves. You sleep better, you perform better at work, you're more patient with the people around you. Financial stress drains enormous amounts of mental energy. Removing that pressure frees up your mind to focus on growth instead of survival. Here's something many people misunderstand about the $10,000 milestone. The biggest benefit isn't spending the money, the biggest benefit is knowing the money is there. Financial experts often call this the emergency fund effect. And despite the name, it's really not about emergencies. It's about peace of mind. Ironically, many people who build a $10,000 safety net rarely use it for emergencies at all. Instead, that financial stability opens doors. They invest in education, they start side businesses, they move to better opportunities, or they simply gain enough mental clarity to focus on increasing their income.
Because when your mind isn't constantly worried about survival, it finally has room to think about progress. Another powerful change happens in your confidence. When you know you have money in the bank, your behavior shifts in subtle but important ways. You negotiate more confidently. You're willing to walk away from bad deals. You stop making decisions out of desperation. That confidence alone can lead to better jobs, stronger relationships, and improved opportunities. Now, you might be thinking something like, saving $10,000 sounds impossible, especially if you're currently struggling to save even $100 a month. But here's the interesting part about human psychology. The hardest part isn't actually saving the money. The hardest part is becoming the kind of person who saves money. Many people treat saving like a temporary diet. They cut expenses aggressively for a few months, feel miserable, burn out, and then go back to their old habits. But the people who eventually reach $10,000 approach it differently. They don't see saving as punishment. They see it as part of their identity. They become someone who prioritizes future security. And once that identity forms, every financial decision starts to change. You begin noticing unnecessary expenses you never paid attention to before. You become more creative about increasing your income. You start thinking about the future instead of just the next weekend. The best part? It gets easier as you go. Saving your first $1,000 can feel incredibly difficult, but saving the second $1,000 is easier. By the time you're working toward $5,000 or $6,000, the process begins to feel almost automatic. The habits are already in place. There's also a simple mathematical reason why $10,000 is such a powerful number. Most unexpected financial problems cost far less than that. Car repairs, medical visits, family emergencies, temporary job loss. Many of these situations can be handled within that range, which means once you reach this milestone, you become protected from many of the financial shocks that keep people trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. But perhaps the biggest shift is how you start thinking about money itself. Before you build savings, money feels like something that disappears as soon as you earn it. Bills arrive, expenses pile up, and everything feels scarce. But once you build a financial cushion, money starts looking different. Instead of just being something you spend, it becomes a tool that creates options, and options create opportunity. Suddenly, you start exploring ideas like investing, side hustles, or passive income, not because you magically became a financial expert, but because you finally have the breathing room to think about the future. Here's a thought that might surprise you. Someone with $10,000 saved is often closer to financial independence than someone earning twice their salary with zero savings. Why? Because the saver has learned the most important skill in wealth building, not earning money, keeping it. You've probably seen people who earn huge salaries but somehow remain broke. Expensive cars, luxury apartments, fancy restaurants, but no savings. Meanwhile, someone earning far less quietly builds financial security simply by spending intentionally. The difference isn't income, it's mindset. And saving your first $10,000 is like a crash course in developing that mindset. At the end of the day, $10,000 doesn't make you wealthy. It doesn't mean you can retire early or quit your job tomorrow. But what it does provide is something incredibly valuable: breathing room. And breathing room is the foundation for every smart financial decision. When you're not constantly gasping for financial air, you can finally step back and think strategically about your future. Better choices start stacking up, opportunities become visible, confidence grows, and over time that first $10,000 becomes the starting point for something much bigger. Because the real transformation isn't the number in your bank account. The real transformation is the person you become while building it.